Good day. It's JJ MMA. Today we are rocking the beanie and we are ready to give you guys some fun matchups to make after UFC Macau and UFC Vegas 117, Arnold Allen versus Malkazai Costa. And yeah, I already match made for UFC 328 and UFC Perth, so go check those videos out. They're out on the channel. So let's get started without further ado. We're going to start off with UFC Macau and the main event winner of that one, Song Yadong. Who do you give him? Because recently, just this morning, Umar had actually been booked. And Umar versus Song Yadong would have been the perfect fight to make. Number 2 versus number 5. You got nothing else to give Umar. But what do? They book David Martinez versus Umar. I kid you not, David Martinez, number 9 ranked, gets a shot to fight up after barely beating Chito Vera, which a lot of contenders do, to be fair, against Umar Nurmagomedov, who is probably just going to run him over. It's kind of a hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby type of matchup. So there is only one guy that you give Song Yadong, and I like Song Yadong. So just so you guys know, I don't have any personal vendetta against Song Yadong just because I'm giving him this matchup. But buddy, it's time to get fed to the wolves. Yeah. We're gonna give you Peyton Talbot, kid. What? What's the question? Oh yeah, Peyton Talbot, Apex main event. Nah, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna disrespect either of these guys like that. They're not going to the Apex. They're going UFC Shanghai, August 29th. It is confirmed before you guys say, oh, but he's making up events, but he's making up locations. They are actually going to China a second time in a year. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this is only the second time. Or this is the first time that they've ever done that. Sorry. This is the first time that the UFC has ever went to China twice in a year. I know Macau is like technically its own thing, but whatever. Who cares? But I say we have Song Yadong headline this one again because, you know, what else do you have? You don't have any other Chinese prospects that can headline this unless you do Mackenzie Dern versus Zhang Wei Li title fight headlining Shanghai, which the UFC doesn't really like to do title fights headlining fight nights nowadays. I think the last time they did that was Grasso Shevchenko, like 3 or 4. I don't know. Yeah, I think they fought like 4 times or something. But anyways, I think this is the clear-cut matchup you make. You got nothing else for Peyton Talbot. He needs to fight up. He just got a win over Henry Cejudo. Song Yadong barely scraped up a win against Henry Cejudo via eye poke. And yeah, I think that this is really the only fight you can give Song Yadong too. You know, everybody ahead of him. You got Corey Sandhagen booked and already beat Song Yadong. You got Sean O'Malley just beat Song Yadong in January. Umar, you could have given him to Umar, but he's booked against David Martinez. And Merab is looking like Merab's going to get the title shot when he comes back, but he's got a messed up nose right now. If you guys recently saw the RAF event, he was like bleeding out of his nose after the wrestling match, which is concerning and it's sad. I like Merab, so that's sad to see. But, you know, I think this is a fight you make. It's a fun fight. Both guys are strikers. Both guys are really skilled. And yeah, there you go. We move on to the next fight that I think you should make the loser of the main event. And, you know, this guy, he called out Figueiredo. And, yeah, he said, like, Unk versus Unk. I mean, he didn't say that, but Unk versus Unk, let's do it. Figueiredo versus Barcelos. I think that this is a great fight to make for both guys. Barcelos deserves to fight up. You know, time's running out for him. He is an Unk at bantamweight, so eventually time will run out for the crafty ones. And he ain't got the best chin on him, so Figueiredo could put the sauce on him. But recently, Figueiredo's been looking very low output, and it's honestly concerning for Figueiredo. I don't know why he hasn't retired yet. If he doesn't retire like soon, then give him this fight, and if he loses it, he retires. If he wins, maybe he keeps fighting, but I don't know what he's fighting for at this point. He's kind of just fighting to fight. And yeah, it's him versus Barcelos. Barcelos deserves a big jump up. He beat Peyton Talbot, who's at number 11. He just beat Montel Jackson pretty clearly. I think that this is a great fight to make, very entertaining fight to make. I say that you do this in Brazil because they usually go to Brazil once or twice a year. They're going to go once this year because it's already halfway in the year. They haven't scheduled anything in Rio or Sao Paulo or any of that yet. So I think that they'll go to either Rio or Sao Paulo and probably book this as the co-main event. You know, either you do main event like Gene Silva, Carlos Prates, maybe do Prates, Michael Morales. You know, I'll match make and do some little card building here and there if you guys want me to. But yeah, I think this is a fun fight to make. Unk versus Unk. Perfect co-main event for a Brazil card. And yeah, we move on to the next fight. And this was the winner of the co-main event of UFC Macau, Alonzo Menafield. Very impressive win from him. First off, I broke his win down in my last video, the recap of the event. Go check that out on the channel. I think that you give him a fight up the rankings. And I know Alonzo Menafield ran at Volkan Oezdemir. This guy's ranked above Volkan Oezdemir, but I think that you give this matchup to Alonzo Menafield. And, you know, this guy has kind of just been sitting around, and I know it's not his fault, but, you know, Jan Blachowicz, he couldn't fight because he tore his meniscus. Bogdan Guskov, I think that this is kind of like a tune-up fight for Bogdan Guskov. I think that Bogdan Guskov is going to easily take care of Alonzo Menafield, and if he doesn't, I don't know what to think about the UFC anymore, because Alonzo Menafield, you know, he kind of just runs at you, and a guy like Bogdan Guskov, who's, you know, more, you know, kind of lighter man skill, more calculated, has a serious shot in his hands, doesn't just trade in the pocket like Zhang Mingyang, defensively responsible. I think Bogdan Guskov is probably going to absolutely bomb Alonzo Menafield out cold if this fight happens. But you don't really have anything else for Bogdan Guskov. And why book Jan versus Guskov again? I don't understand why you would do Jan Blachowicz versus Bogdan Guskov again. So I would just say give this to Alonzo Menafield, or sorry, not Alonzo Menafield, Bogdan Guskov as a tune-up fight kind of. And yeah, let Alonzo Menafield try his luck against Bogdan Guskov. It sounded like after his fight with Zhang Mingyang, Alonzo Menafield was hinting that he wanted to stay active a lot, said he has bills to pay. Yeah, just let him fight and let him get this opportunity. Super fun fight. I don't know what card you put this on yet, but yeah, I mean, you'd probably do this in like October, November, give him some time, because he did take some damage in there against Zhang Mingyang. So yeah, end of the year, I could see this matchup going on. And yeah, we move on to the loser of the co-main event, Zhang Mingyang. You got to give him someone lower level, obviously. You tried a shot in the rankings twice. After beating Anthony Smith, he just hasn't looked the same. Johnny Walker light kick TKO'd him, and Alonzo Menafield just did what Alonzo Menafield does, just brawl in the pocket. But he actually got the finish this time. So good on Alonzo Menafield. But on the other hand, Zhang Mingyang, you can't put him back in there for the Shanghai card. He took too much damage. He was cut everywhere, big cut below the eye, on the bridge of the nose, got knocked out pretty badly, got dropped, I think, two or three times. And I think that you give him somebody lower level. You could put this on a France card. If Zhang Mingyang wants to make a turnaround, which he honestly could do it against this guy, because he wouldn't be risking much. And he also didn't get flatlined too. Like Charles Oliveira got flatlined and then he got back in there and didn't get hit clean much. So I would trust his ability not to get hit clean on this one too much. But I think that you put him in there for a France card in late September. I think that they'll do a pay-per-view in France. Probably like Strickland versus Imavov. They'll do that in France. Strickland's shoulder tear ain't that bad. But anyways, you put this on a France pay-per-view card, headlining the prelims. Zhang Mingyang versus Umar Sy. Great fight. You know, Umar Sy just lost his most recent fight to Iwon Kutalaba. Umar Sy's got 2 losses in the UFC, and so does Zhang Mingyang. This is a good, like, who's the better contender at light heavyweight. Even though these guys are like the top contenders at light heavyweight, they're still, you know, not very good, and they're far separated from the rankings. So I mean, there's like the problem with light heavyweight, man, is there's like outside the rankings, you got like nothing. Outside the rankings, there's a huge skill drop off, and maybe not even skill drop off, just like talent drop off. Like Alonzo Menafield, just by aggression and by hitting him with the better shots. And I know Zhang Mingyang did actually land shots of his own, but you know, I expected Zhang Mingyang to win that fight, and he didn't, man. And I don't know what happened. It was just like he should win win that fight brawling in the pocket with Alonzo Menafield, who's a much smaller guy. He's 38 years old, but he didn't. So I think that you give Zhang Mingyang a step down in competition. Umar Sy, if he doesn't win this, give him like a bottom of the barrel UFC contender, and I mean, yeah, it's all downhill for Zhang Mingyang if he loses this one. But yeah, give him this one, let him recover, maybe later than the France card. But Zhang Mingyang versus Umar Sy, solid fight. We move on to the next one, the winner of the featured bout on the main card of UFC Macau, Sergey Pavlovich. I think that you give him, I mean, he doesn't need to take time. That's the thing. You've knocked out Talson Teixeira in 40 seconds, and it's kind of expected because all Talson Teixeira really is just a tall guy. Like it's kind of easy to find the guy's chin. But I mean, you give him a contenders fight after this. And really the only contenders fights I can see is you either give him Josh Hokett after he beats Derek Lewis. I think he'll beat Derek Lewis. Or Gane if he loses to Pereira. And I think that the more plausible, scenario is Gane losing to Pereira. And I think that this is going to be Sergey Pavlovich's next fight if Gane loses to Pereira. And that's a big if, because I think the fight is actually a lot closer than some people may think. Gane's underrated, in his ability to out tit for tat Pereira on the feet in moments. I don't see him finding Pereira's chin, don't get me wrong. But hopefully he doesn't. I hate Cyril Gane. But, with the crimes that he's done against humanity with his eye poking, kicking the nuts, he did it to Jones, which is okay. You can do it to Jones. But once you start, hitting back of the head shots on Tuivasa and eye poking Tom Aspinall, you're not cool then. So I think that you give Cyril Gane versus Sergey Pavlovich. I think that you give Gane some time after he probably gets knocked out by Pereira. That's my prediction. But at the same time, it's a big if. So if Pereira loses to Gane, and if Gane wins somehow, I'm not going to say somehow because it could happen. If Gane beats Pereira, then you have, I think, Sergey Pavlovich versus Josh Hokett, because I think that's really the only contenders fight you can make at that point, because Pereira's not going to stay at heavyweight after that. What's Pereira going to do? Fight contenders? What's he going to do? Fight Volkov? I don't think he's going to do that. I think he'll go back down to light heavyweight if he loses this one and fight Carlos Ulberg. But regardless, I think that this is the fight that you make, assuming Pereira beats Gane at the White House. And yeah, we move on to the next fight. The loser, and I know I'm kind of making fights for I'm making fights for the lower level guys on the UFC Macau card, but I don't have to break down many cards, so I'm kind of diving deeper into it. Telson Teixeira is still ranked. Maybe he isn't by tomorrow, I don't know, but he's at the number 15 spot right now. And I think that the guy that you give him is Vitor Petrino. I think you do this one in Brazil. Give Telson Teixeira some time to recover from his knockout. It wasn't that bad, though. He kind of just stood right up after it. Didn't seem jelly-legged or anything. He got knocked out with a big overhand, but it landed with the forearm and then got ground pound TKO'd. So not that bad of a finish on Telson Teixeira's chin. And for his recovery, I think he can recover decently quick. Just, give him a month and then let him get back into sparring. Or maybe even 3 weeks, and let him get back to the spar, let him get back into training. And then he can start a fight camp for an October Brazil card, and he can fight Vitor Petrino, a fellow Brazilian who's, I think, ranked talent. And he's made a big step up since moving up to heavyweight. And he just beat Steven Asplund, even though he did get touched up a little bit. Steven Asplund's very good. Good win. He didn't drop Steven Asplund because he's got a chin of iron. But he hurt Steven Asplund a few times pretty badly on the feet. Made some really deep cuts in his face. And so really good performance there from Vitor Petrino. And I think that he deserves to fight ranked. I don't know why Telson Teixeira is ranked. His only wins are Tuivasa, who just lost to Louis Sutherland, and Justin Tafa. Not even Junior Tafa, Justin Tafa, who is, I think, far worse than Junior Tafa. So I think that you give Telson Teixeira, Vitor Petrino, kind of in my eyes, this is another hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby. But, I think Vitor Petrino absolutely bombs Telson Teixeira out cold. But, yeah, I think that's a fun fight to make for UFC Brazil. We move on to the next fight. And I think that this is a fight that you should give Kaya Sakura, man. You should give Kaya Sakura a little bump up in competition. Not near the rankings of bantamweight. The rankings in bantamweight are looking really good recently. But I think that you give him someone outside the rankings who's lost 2 in a row. Lost to Figgy and lost to, Raoni Barcelos in a row. I think this is a really fun strikers matchup. Montel Jackson versus Kaya Sakura. Montel Jackson did drop Raoni Barcelos in the first round of their fight. Was looking better on the feet. Raoni Barcelos got the unk stance and he's leaning his head to the side and throwing strikes at weird angles. I think Montel Jackson versus Kaya Sakura is a super sick fight to make. Kaya Sakura looked really good in his bantamweight debut. Montel Jackson looks really sharp on the feet. And I think that this is a super solid fight to make. Honestly, if you're going to go to Japan, I want to see this added to Japan. I think that the UFC should probably do a fight night in Japan. Or if Kyoji Horiguchi beats Manel Kape, maybe you do pay-per-view in Japan, start of next year, Pantoja versus Horiguchi main event. That would be sick. And then you have Tatsuro Taira versus Manel Kape, or the winner of Kavanaugh. You could do Taira and Kavanaugh, because Kavanaugh's half Chinese too, so you could do China versus Japan kind of. So that would be interesting. I mean, if the UFC goes to Japan, they should definitely add this fight on the card. But I see this fight happening sooner. Yeah, I mean, maybe you add this to like an Abu Dhabi type thing, or a Qatar card, some Middle East card later in the year. Maybe they go to Saudi. Maybe it's just a European or an Apex card. I don't even know. But this is definitely a fight to make. Sick fight. Both guys are strikers. Both guys have power in their hands. I think Kaya Sakura definitely has some serious power in his hands now that he's moved up to bantamweight. But definitely sick fight. Add this to any card. We move on to the next fight on this card. A winner of a fight on the main card. Jake Matthews. Dude, I don't like the way that Jake Matthews won, man. He should have got the finish. I like Jake Matthews, but it's the cycle. Jake Matthews is like a gatekeeper, like a level below Neil Magny, because he lost to Neil Magny. But like, if you beat Neil Magny, that's objectively a much better win than beating Jake Matthews. Not much better, but a level ahead. So he's a good gatekeeper to like the top 20 of the welterweight division. Jake Matthews is, but I think that you gotta give Joel Alvarez a bounce back, and I think Jake Matthews is a great tune-up fight for him. I think that this is a great fight for both guys. Joel Alvarez recently just got like absolutely dominated by Yaroslav Amosov, but no shame in that because Yaroslav Amosov is absolutely legit and super good. We'll talk about him in a card building video. If you guys want me to make a card building video, let me know, because I have some fights set up for Yaroslav Amosov and other guys in the welterweight division, and a lot of other guys in every division. So let me know if you guys want that. I'm always thinking about that. But Joel Alvarez versus Jake Matthews, definitely a sick fight. I think that Joel Alvarez wins by slime out, don't get me wrong, but this will be competitive. Like, don't get me wrong, like, Joel Alvarez shouldn't be like a minus 400 favorite. He should definitely not be minus 400. I think that this is closer to even odds. I would favor him more like minus 200 on the odds. So I think that Joel Alvarez will probably win by slime out, not gonna lie. But Jake Matthews is crafty. Watch out for Jake Matthews. But Joel Alvarez is really, really good on the feet. He has the power. He has some solid jiu-jitsu, I'm pretty sure. I might be mixing him up with somebody, but I think I've seen him submit a few guys in the UFC before. I don't know. But yeah, definitely a sick fight to make. Yeah, there you go. We move on to the next fight that I think should be booked. And yeah, this is the second to last fight that we're going to talk about that needs to be made after UFC Macau. And I think that you rebook this one. I think, like, I don't see Alex because they just booked Steve Erceg versus Ramazan Tamarov. I don't like that because Ramazan Tamarov just popped for roids. Then you suspend him for a year, give him a slap on the wrist and say, okay, buddy, time for the rankings again. I don't like that. And Ramazan Tamarov is very good too. But I don't like him fighting Steve Erceg, man. I love Steve Erceg. And I was thinking about maybe give Steve Erceg Amir Albazi and then just rebook this. But I guess they're going to give him Ramazan Tamarov, and that makes it easier for me to match up these guys again. I think that you rebook this for the Shanghai event, put this on the main card. Perez versus Sumadarji too. Yeah, not much left to be said. I did say this in my predictions video as well. And yeah, we're going to move on to the last fight that I think should be made after UFC Macau. And bro, how do you not do Rob Font versus Cody Haddon, kid? This is actually a sick fight. Rob Font, whenever he gets grappled, is just always throwing up that omoplata, thinking it's going to work, even though it never will. And he was trying to do that against Raul Rosas Jr., not even trying to get back to the feet, just praying with his omoplata, which is never going to work. But, Cody Haddon, I think he'll beat up on Rob Font. I think Rob Font's too old at this point. There was a point, like, he was crafty. He beat Gene Matsumoto. But I don't see this going Rob Font's way in any universe. I think Cody Haddon's just too good. 2-0 in the UFC. I know he was supposed to fight Malcolm Wellmaker. I think he would have beat Malcolm Wellmaker looking back at it. He's got really solid wrestling, and that seems to be Malcolm Wellmaker's kryptonite. A guy like Juan Diaz, who has pretty good wrestling, but it's not amazing. That's not his main weapon. His main weapon is, how he is on the feet and the nasty spinning elbow that he hit that Korean dude with. But that's Juan Diaz. We'll actually talk about him later in the video. But, Cody Haddon, I think he's also really solid, really technical on the feet. But once he gets to the grappling, he is a dominator. And he's just like, he's a wrestler. He'll wrestle you down. He'll keep taking you down. Really good performance against Richie Ling in the UFC Macau event. And I think Rob Font's just on the decline. I think Unk's got to retire after this. A last little hurrah for Rob Font, probably either in the Apex or I heard that in November they're going to go to Sydney for a fight night again. I like that. I like that the UFC is going to Australia 3 times a year, because that's what that's what they should be doing. I just hope I don't have to wake up at 6 a.m. for it again. So regardless, this is a great fight to make. Yeah, it'll prop up Cody Haddon a little bit. And Rob Font, don't count him out. He's crafty, great striking. He does still have some pretty good striking. Not very good grappling. He always tries to throw out the omoplata, so it's never going to work for him. But yeah, there you go. That's the UFC Macau card breakdown. Now we're going to talk about, not the breakdown, but the fights that you should make after it. Now we're going to talk about UFC Vegas 117, Arnold Allen versus Melquizael Costa. The winner of the main event, Arnold Allen. I think that it's a pretty clear-cut fight that you give to him. I think that's Aljamain Sterling. And I know Aljamain Sterling, I know I've said recently that you can have Aljamain Sterling kind of wait out and wait for the title shot. First Volk versus Mobstar, and then have Volk fight Aljo, and then Volk retires. You could do that, but at the same time, I do want to see Aljo versus Allen. I think this is a sick fight. I'm surprised this hasn't happened yet. I looked at recent fights that have happened in Aljo's career, and I swear I thought Aljo fought Allen, but he didn't. I was thinking about Mobstar. Don't know how I got those two mixed up, but Aljo, he could definitely win this one. He's got great grappling, but the thing about Arnold Allen, man, is he's such a good counter grappler. Really solid defensively in the grappling. He does get taken down at moments, but I don't think Aljo's going to hold him down. That's the thing, man. Arnold Allen is very physical. He's 5'8.5", pretty burly, well fit for the featherweight division, and he's a great striker on the feet. He's going to outstrike Aljo. He's not quite that O'Malley where he can just step back and be elusive, hit and not get hit. But at the same time, Arnold Allen, he's very good offensively, good pressure striker, will pop the jab on you, actually a nasty jab. I'm not just saying that, pop the jab, mate, pop the jab, mate. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not just saying it for, the English boxing stereotype. I'm saying it because he actually does pop the jab, and he has a sick jab. He has a nasty jab. I think he could definitely touch up Aljo with it. Aljo is clunky on the feet, but he can hit you at times. But I don't worry about Arnold Allen's chin after he toughed out some pretty good shots from Melky Costa in the fight. But, this is a fight I think you make. You could put this on the MSG card in November, or you could do this earlier. Arnold Allen says he wants to keep staying active. Maybe you give him this fight in October. Maybe you do this as an Apex main event. I don't know. This would be a really sick Apex main event, don't get me wrong. Or, you could do this as, I think they're going to go to England another time this year. You could do this as a Manchester Fight Night main event. Later in the year, Manchester Fight Night main event, Aljo versus Allen, Cinema. Best matchmaker on YouTube. I'm taking Bedtime MMA's title. But anyway, I can't top Bedtime MMA. He's too much of a crafty vet for me. Anyways, we move on to the next fight that we should make on this card. The loser of the main event, Melquizael Costa. He recently announced that he will be moving up to lightweight. I don't know about that move. He had some fights that you could give him at featherweight. I had him matched up with Brian Ortega. However, he did announce that he wants to move up to lightweight. So I think that the only real clear-cut fight that you could give him is, I was thinking about Chandler, but I remember that, Chandler's not going to be active. He fights once a year. And Melquizael Costa is going to be active, and he's always been active. And I think that you give him a guy that's going to be active as well. And I think that, Melquizael Costa, who he will fight, I just farted, it will depend on the winner of the featured bout of the card this weekend. Faresiam versus Tom Nolan. Whoever wins this fight, I think it'll be Faresiam. And I know Faresiam's been fighting down, and he's kind of been disrespected, and he's been fighting down. Melquizael Costa, you kind of got to give him a ranked opponent because, he was just ranked number 12, and he still is ranked number 12 at featherweight. But, the winner of this fight, which I think will be Faresiam, I think that you give him to Melquizael Costa, and you let this fight happen because whoever wins this fight, it's a closer fight than people think. I think Tom Nolan actually has a chance. But, whoever wins this fight, I think you give him to Melquizael Costa. Who else are you going to give Melky Costa? Rafael Fiziev after, I guess you could do that. You either do this, the winner of this versus Melky Costa, or Rafael Fiziev after he loses to Manuel Torres, or if he doesn't lose to Manuel Torres. So I think Manuel Torres will absolutely chin Rafael Fiziev after, what Hoofy did to him, and now he's taken this fight, and Manuel Torres is probably even more dangerous with the power than Mauricio Hoofy is. So, I mean, you could either do this or Rafael Fiziev. I'd say probably this is more likely. Or you could give him Rafael Fiziev in like December or the beginning of next year, but I don't think he wants to wait that long. So this is why I'm saying the winner of Ziam versus Nolan versus Melchizayo Costa. And yeah, we move on to the winner of the co-main event of UFC Vegas 117. Doo Ho Choi. I think he deserves a ranked opponent. And I was looking through the rankings, who's the number 15? Oh, Josh Emmett. He's going to be out for a while because he just got slimed by Vallejos. David Onama, number 14. Number 13, you have Pico. I think Pico deserves to fight up. Just a little bit, though, maybe into the top 10 if you're nice to him. You got Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega's probably going to move up to lightweight. Don't know what he's doing. He's kind of been sitting on his ass after pulling out of the fight against Moicano. I think that you go David Onama versus Doo Ho Choi. And David Onama hasn't fought in a long time. It's been, not a long time. I think it was November 1st when he fought Steve Garcia and got slimed. But I think that, I don't know why David Onama's still ranked. A win over, I think it was Calvin Kattar. Did he beat Calvin Kattar? Is that what got him ranked? I don't even remember. It was the win over Giga Chikadze. Yeah, David Onama beat Giga Chikadze, and then he got ranked number 14. And he lost to Steve Garcia. Now I think he should fight Doo Ho Choi, but hopefully Doo Ho Choi is active. I don't know if he's going to be active. That's the thing. If he's going to be active, which he should be, give him this fight. I'd say the co-main event of the UFC Shanghai card, because Doo Ho Choi took very minimal damage. He did get hit a little bit by Daniel Santos, but honestly, not much. Doo Ho Choi is super tough. I don't think any of those shots really fazed him. A lot of the big overhands and the big shots that Daniel Santos was throwing at him were kind of missing. And David Onama hasn't fought since November, so I think that you do this in Shanghai. Favorable environment for Doo Ho Choi, considering he lives in Korea, which is right next to China, right next to Shanghai, if you know your geography. But, I think that this is a good fight to make. It's going to be a sick fight. And I got Doo Ho Choi winning this. I know he's 35, but, that's not even that old and not welterweight, in featherweight terms nowadays, because you got Lerone Murphy, who's 35 too, and he still looks solid. And Doo Ho Choi's fight style is kind of just patient and rip to the body, rip big shots, pop the jab, really good stiff jab he has. So I don't think he'll deteriorate that much with age, and I don't think he should wait any longer. I think that he deserves a ranked opportunity. He's won 3 in a row now. I know it's not the best 3 wins in a row, but Daniel Santos is a pretty good win. And he beat Nate Landwehr when Nate Landwehr was beating everybody. Before Nate Landwehr even, I think, lost more than 2 fights in the UFC. So, yeah, I think this is a sick fight to make. We move on to the second to last fight I will be talking about on this video. The winner of the featured bout on UFC Vegas 117, Juan Diaz. I think even though it's going to be a second fight in the UFC, you give him a big jump up in competition. Not a big jump up in competition, literally, but a big jump up in a guy who was just in the rankings, Kyler Phillips. And I know Kyler Phillips just lost to Charles Jourdain, but he didn't take much damage. I think that you do this fight relatively soon. I think that you either do this in the Apex or you do this on a Mexico card. I think they're going to go to Mexico probably September 12th, right before Mexican Independence Day. They usually do that with the UFC Noche card. I think that they should put this on UFC Noche. Kyler Phillips versus Juan Diaz. I know Juan Diaz is Peruvian, but close enough to Mexico. Why don't you just throw him on the Noche card? He speaks Spanish. This is a sick fight to make. Juan Diaz super good. Kyler Phillips is crafty, got good wrestling, was taking down Charles Jourdain a lot. I don't think he won the fight. I still think Charles Jourdain won the fight 29-28. But, man, Juan Diaz, I think he could easily outcraft Kyler Phillips. I could see him submitting Kyler Phillips, too. He had some nasty jiu-jitsu, was moving positions well, really fluid work onto the back and into the mount, the full guard, passing Malcolm Wellmaker's guard. So, and I know Malcolm Wellmaker ain't the best toughest back either, but, jump up in competition for him. I think it's well-deserved. Kyler Phillips versus Juan Diaz. Yeah, we move on to the next fight I think that you should make on this card. And Malcolm Wellmaker. Oh, where do I begin? The loser of the featured bout on UFC Vegas 117. Who do you give him? I think it's none other but the crafty man himself, Davy Grant. You can never count out Davy Grant from a fight. He'll take anything, and he'll throw flying teeps to the body. You don't get another guy like Davy Grant, man. And I think that you should definitely put this on a UFC Manchester card. Get him in England. Him versus Malcolm Wellmaker is definitely a sick fight to make. Could be a great bounce back for Malcolm Wellmaker. You know, Davy Grant, he don't grapple too much. He does like to shoot a little bit, but at the same time, you know, he's very fluid on the feet. Looks better. He looked a lot better in his performance against Juan Martinetti. But you know, I just see this going Malcolm Wellmaker's way. I think this is a great bounce back for Malcolm Wellmaker. Get another guy to chin. Davy Grant is chinny. He's old. I think that this is a great anti-Unk matchup too. And yeah, Davy Grant, it's time to say goodbye. I think Malcolm Wellmaker slams him out. Yeah, put this in UFC Manchester, and I think that's probably going to happen towards the end of the year. Probably December, if I were to guess. You know, Mystic JJ MMA predicting when cards are going to happen and where they're going to happen. But yeah, I think this is a sick fight to make. And yeah, that's my fights to make for after UFC Macau and UFC Vegas 117. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Follow my socials, Twitter at the JJMMA and Instagram at the JJMMA official. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.